Edgewood University Year 1, Episode 18. Worst Intentions. I would rather be rich with a broken heart than rich with bad intentions. Unknown. Cassidy's and Bailey's eyes widened as they saw two warlock men lead Layla onto the stage with a metal contraption around her neck. It looked like a dog collar with small, round, black objects sticking out. The warlocks held metal poles connected to the collar and used the poles to walk her like a deranged animal. Two ferrymen led Connor onto the stage with the same gadget around his neck, and his and Layla's hands were bound behind their backs. Layla snarled at the men, and a warlock zapped her with a long prod. She whimpered, hanging her head, and Connor growled. The students and faculty stared, and Cassidy swallowed hard. "This isn't good," she said. "Someone's got to get tighter," said Bailey, and Cody nodded, looking at Alex. "All right, let's go," he said. Alex nodded, getting up from his chair when Bailey grabbed his arm. "Someone has to stay here and see what this asshole is up to," she said, and Cassidy agreed. She thought momentarily and looked at Cody and Alex. "Bailey and I will stay here. Go. Hurry," she whispered, and the guys snuck out of the great hall. First, Alex and Cody ran into the suite and found Tyler and Faith making out on the couch. Tyler and Faith looked at them, and Faith scowled. She covered her breast with her arm, grabbed Tyler's shirt off the floor, and put it over her chest. "What the hell?" she snapped. "Sorry, Faith. Tyler, come quick. Your father has Layla and Connor trapped on the stage," said Alex, breathing heavily, and Cody nodded, catching his breath. Tyler and Faith looked at each other, jumped off the couch, and ran into Faith's room. They dressed quickly and joined their pack members in the sitting room. Cody nodded, and he and the others ran out of the suite. Peter looked at Layla and Connor, and the alpha spark snarled with glowing eyes. He chuckled and looked at the crowd. "I don't know if you knew your classmates were part of this, but now you know. You see, Layla, who everyone believed was born human, was bitten," he said, and pulled Layla's shirt up, showing the horrific scar. The students and faculty gasped, and the three witches laughed. "Look at that thing. It's hideous," said Brenda, and her sisters snickered. The blonde-haired witch looked at Connor and made a sad face. "I'm so sorry you have to look at that. Here, look at this," she said, and pulled up her shirt. "See, smooth, soft, and yearning for your touch," she moaned, and the other witches laughed. Layla looked at Connor and saw him looking at the girl's cream-colored skin. She looked at the floor, and a tear slid down her cheek. Connor glanced at her, growled, and looked at the witches. "Yeah, that's not really my style. It's too perfect. My girl's scar is beautiful as she is," he said. Layla picked up her head and looked at him. "That thing is far from beautiful," laughed the redhead, and Connor snickered. "You think so? Her scar is gorgeous because it's part of her story. Who wants to sit around and look at a blank page?" Snickers and snorts rang through the crowd, and a few werewolves howled. The witches scowled, grabbed their things, and walked toward the door. Brenda looked at Peter, and he snickered, shrugging. "He does have a point, and you deserved it for putting on that little show," he said, and she scoffed, leaving the room. Layla smiled at Connor, and he smirked, raising an eyebrow. Peter cleared his throat, and the crowd fell silent. "As I was saying before, that little stunt. Layla wasn't born human. After she was bitten and came to Edgewood, the alpha dragon spark merged with her. Alpha sparks do not merge with humans, hybrids, fairies, warlocks, witches, or banshees. They only choose hellhounds and hellcats," he explained. The students mumbled amongst each other, and a boy raised his hand. "Yes." "What about Connor Lancer? He's an alpha werewolf. Why would he have an alpha spark?" Peter chuckled and looked at Connor. "Well, Mr. Lancer is a hellhound. His parents were terrified of him, and I watched over him as he grew up into the fine man he's become today. Connor's mother had an affair with a fire fairy, and when she found out she was pregnant, she came to me for guidance." Connor looked at Peter with wide eyes and swallowed hard. No way his mother had an affair. "That's a lie," growled Connor, and Peter shook his head. "I'm afraid it's not. I have proof I can show you when this is all over. I mean, that is if you survive." Layla snarled at Peter, and he sighed. "All right, let's finish this later. Take them," he said, and the warlocks and fairies led Connor and Layla out of the great hall. The students and faculty watched them struggle as their classmates left, and everyone looked at Peter. "Where are you taking them?" asked a girl, and Peter smiled. "For a safe place until it's time for them to do their purpose. I will be calling for another assembly at midnight tonight. It is mandatory, so get some rest. You all are dismissed." Tyler, Faith, Alex, and Cody ran into Cassidy and Bailey in the hall, and Tyler grabbed Cassidy's shoulders. "What happened? Where's Layla and Connor?" he asked, searching her eyes, and saw tears streaming down her face. "I don't know. They had collars around their necks, and he said he was taking them to a safe place until it was time for them to fulfill their purpose. He's calling an assembly at midnight," she explained, and he pulled her against his chest. Bailey looked at Faith sadly, and Faith raised an eyebrow. "Peter told the school that your mother had an affair with a fire fairy and as proof. He told Connor he would show him if he survived." Faith searched her eyes and gasped. Bailey felt her emotions and looked at her oddly. "You knew?" she asked, and Faith shook her head. "No, maybe. I don't know. When I was 4, I saw my mom with a strange man once, but that could have been anybody," she said, and Bailey looked at her with care. "We'll figure it out, but right now, we need to find Layla and Connor," she said. "Agreed," said Tyler, and the pack nodded. "Now, where do you think your father might have put our friends?" asked Alex, and Tyler thought momentarily. His eyes widened, and he grabbed Faith's hand. "Come on, follow me," he said, and they ran down the hall. The warlocks and fairies led Layla and Connor down cold, stone steps and into separate cells. They took the contraptions off their necks, locked the cell doors, and left. Layla growled, pacing back and forth, and shook her head. "I'm going to fucking kill Ty." Connor sighed and leaned against the bars. "Why?" "Because he said they didn't have dungeons. Fucking liar," she growled, and he chuckled. She glanced at him with glowing eyes and huffed a breath. "You think this is funny?" she asked, and he smirked. "It's quite amusing, my fiery, gorgeous pea," he said, and she growled. "I'm not in the mood." Connor laughed and gave her a knowing look. "Oh, look how the tables have turned," he boasted, and Layla hissed. He put his hands through the bars, leaned on his elbows, and shrugged, making a face. "There's nothing you can do about it, babe." He laughed. Layla growled in frustration, backed up, and ran at the bars. Connor cringed, waiting for her to knock herself out. But as she hit the bars, she went crashing to the floor and landed on her hands and knees. He stared wide-eyed, and she smirked, looking at him. She stood, brushed herself off, and walked toward Connor. He backed away, and she crashed through his bars. She stood and stared at him with glowing eyes. "There's plenty I can do about it," she growled, walking toward him. He raised his hands, but she tackled him to the ground and pinned his arms above his head. "Oh no, she's got me pinned. Help somebody. I'm helpless and can't defend myself," he said sarcastically, and she snorted. He searched her eyes and smirked. "You crashed our doors down," he said. Layla let go of his wrist, straightened, and looked around. Her eyes widened, and she gasped, looking at Connor. "I did," she breathed. "And you let go of me. Come here," he growled playfully. He grabbed her waist and rolled on top of her. "My hero," he said, and pressed his lips to hers. She sighed, kissing him back, and ran her fingers through his hair. He growled softly, biting her lower lip, and she whimpered. He pulled back, licked his lips, and gave her a thoughtful look. "I say, let's blow this joint and finish this conversation later," he said, and she agreed. Connor kissed Layla quickly, nipped her neck, and pulled her to her feet. Tyler, Faith, Cassidy, Cody, Bailey, and Alex searched the school for their friends and Tyler's father and couldn't find either. They went back to the suite and sat in the sitting room. "Where could he have taken them?" cried Bailey, and Alex rubbed her shoulder. "I don't know, but it looks like we're going to have to wait till midnight. I'm sure Peter will be making them attend the assembly." Sighed Cassidy. Cody rubbed her arm, and Tyler growled, pacing. "Hey, Ty, please come sit down," said Faith softly, and he looked at her with crimson eyes. He sighed, and they faded. "Babe, I can't. I'm sorry," he sighed, and she looked at him in surprise. "Babe?" she asked, and Cassidy looked at them. "Yeah, I thought from earlier you meant—" Faith jumped off the couch, jumped in his arms, and hugged him tight. He chuckled, sighed, and hugged her tightly, resting his head against hers. She pulled back, grinned, and kissed him. 15 minutes. All students are to report to the schoolyard. Please pick up a chair from the Great Hall if you wish to sit. Bailey looked at Alex and sighed. "Well, let's go pull some dangerous shit and save our friends," she said, and Cassidy, Cody, Faith, Tyler, and Alex agreed.